It's, of course, an Alabama Wednesday night here on Mark Rogers TV. We bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama to help us break down the offense, the defense, and now, lest we not forget, Stephen, the special teams. A lot of people forget about how important the special teams are, but that's not going to be the case at Alabama. Nick Saban will not let that happen. He knows that it's 1/3 of the ball game.
He knows it, and he learned it from the great Paul Bear Bryant, who talked about how important special teams is during his tenure as the Crimson Tide head coach in the yesteryear of Alabama football. But in special teams, it all starts with J.K. Scott, the golden leg from Denver, Colorado, returning for his senior year. J.K. Scott, as a freshman, 48 yards a punt, did a phenomenal job. As a sophomore, kind of had a bit of a slump in 2015, but got it going late in the season. And, of course, last year, returned to a bit more of his freshman form, averaged 47 yards a kick in the high 40 average range, was left off the Ray Guy Award list. I don't see how in the world that happened. So you look at next season, a big year for J.K. Scott to clinch some awards, to continue his directional punting, flipping the field, pinning teams inside the 5, inside the 10-yard line. So having J.K. Scott back is huge. But the main question for Alabama next season, Mark, is replacing Adam Griffith. We know the story of him coming from Poland to the U.S. to start a new life, to get some opportunities, was adopted by a family in Calhoun, Georgia, had a couple of game-winning field goals in his high school career. He comes to Alabama in 2012, redshirts that season. 2013, missed the 56-yard field goal to start the kick six against Auburn. So he gets his fame from kind of an infamous moment. And despite a roller coaster career, you saw the highs of Adam Griffith making clutch kicks, had the onside kick against Clemson in the national championship game that was recovered. We saw him at his low points, but all in all, pretty steady kicker. So having to replace Adam Griffith, we look at Joseph Bunavus, the 3-star recruit from Louisiana, 6 feet, 6'1", 200-pound kicker from this year's class, and then also Andy Papanastis, an individual that Alabama brought in as a transfer from Ole Miss, who enters his final year of eligibility. So interesting note to see who's going to be the one to win this battle between Bunavus and Papanastis. We'll take a look at that, especially when spring ball comes back around on March 21st, which is next week. And then also handling the return game via punt and kick return. The two guys Alabama returns from last season, Xavier Marks, who had a punt return for a touchdown against Western Kentucky, and then also Trayvon Diggs, who has had great moments handling the ball, has had some rough moments judging the bounce of the ball, but an individual that once he gets his hands on the football can be very explosive. So you have Marks, Trayvon Diggs, and then there's been some talk of Calvin Ridley thrown in there, 2017 athlete Tredarius Towson from this recruiting class thrown in there. We'll see the bits and pieces that Nick Saban will put together to provide that depth. But the main two concrete names as far as return game is concerned, Xavier Marks, Trayvon Diggs.
Pretty limited sample size because Ardarius Stewart in the kickoff return game returned a number of kicks, but it was pretty well spread out between Stewart, Trayvon Diggs, and Xavier Marks. Trayvon Diggs had almost 24 yards per kickoff return. Xavier Marks at 17.6. And the punt returns, of course, the likes of Eddie Jackson gone after returning to the house this past season, one of the best in college football in recent years. Trayvon Diggs at 10 yards per return, and Xavier Marks, with the help of that one going the distance, a little bit more effective on the stat sheet, but of course, limited sample size. That's what it comes down to in regards to that spot. The coverage units, you feel comfortable about what you've seen in recent years, and that's usually a pretty steady hallmark of these Crimson Tide teams.
Oh, absolutely. With the Tide returning Tony Brown, Minka Fitzpatrick, Ronnie Harrison, Levi Wallace, who's gone from being a reserve player to now a scholarship athlete, Anthony Averett. Alabama's got some gunners, some of the same guys from last year. returning to track the football, down the football, and really play the ball well, making tackles in space to prevent big returns. Also, Keaton Anderson, who had a couple of big pops last year, he comes back. Mac Wilson back, also Hootie Jones back. So a lot of the guys from last year's coverage team gunning, getting those tackles in space are back, very much so comfortable with the guys Alabama has returned on that end.